Hey guys, good morning. Mr. Wall here. All right, we're doing our last day of English for this week. This particular lesson starts to get into something that I think you guys probably already know a little bit about. So I had told you that, as we studied Jackie Robinson, we're going to start moving into the civil rights movement. And you're going to see that this is the forefront of that. All right, so what I'm going to be asking you guys to do, I'm going to read a quote to you now. It's from Dr. Martin Luther King, all right, and it's involving something called the Montgomery bus boycotts. And a woman that was involved there, Rosa Parks, is someone who I assume you guys have heard of before because of how important it was what she did. All right, and really, when it comes down to it, her protest, the way that she stood up against racism and discrimination was by not changing her seat. And that's because at this time, the time of segregation, all right, in Montgomery, Alabama, and other southern states, black people were asked to sit in the back of the bus. All right. Now, I know with you guys on the school bus, the back of the bus is a cool spot, right? That wasn't the case for adults, that are commuting to work and all that. Rosa Parks was an older woman. She was tired. She had been working all day. She just wanted to sit down. And a white person came on the bus and asked her to move her seat because they wanted to sit there. They felt they had like a right to the seat over her and like superiority. And she said no. All right. And that created a whole hubbub. All right. And she actually got arrested because she refused to give up her seat. And that moment, and on top of all the racism and the segregation that the black people in particular, had been facing, was the spark that caused the civil rights movement to really explode. All right. And this is where Martin Luther King and many, 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 many other African American people in Alabama, but also white people come to help out as well. People that believe African American people should have the exact same rights as anybody else. All right. So there are white people supporting this. Okay. No longer what we call abolitionists, because that's about slavery, but they're what we call desegregationalists. They believe that they should be desegregated, which means there shouldn't be segregation. We should get rid of it. All right. So I'm going to read this quote to you now. All right. This is from Dr. Martin Luther King after Rosa Parks has been arrested and before the Montgomery bus boycotts, or right as they're beginning. For a number of years, the Negro passengers on the city bus lines of Montgomery have been humiliated, intimidated, and faced threats on this bus line. Just the other day, one of the fine citizens of our community, Mrs. Rosa Parks, was arrested because she refused to give up her seat for a white passenger. Mrs. Rosa Parks was arrested, taken down to jail, taken from the bus just because she was refused to give up her seat. At present, we are still in the midst of a protest of the Negro citizens of Montgomery, representing some 44% of the population. 90% at least of the regular Negro bus passengers are staying off the buses, and we plan to continue until something is done. All right, so these people are boycotting going and using the buses to get to work. And what that means is they're refusing to get on the buses. It's a protest. They're not going to spend their own money, their hard-earned money, to take a bus that tells them they have to sit in the back. All right. And so what they did is they carpooled, they walked to work. All right. But 90% of the people, the African American people that take these buses overnight, stop doing it. So I want you guys to think about what that might do to the city of Montgomery. All right. To the bus line of Montgomery. Just imagine all of a sudden 90% of African American people stop taking the subways in New York. What do you think would happen? All right, so I just want you to keep that in the back of your mind, all right? So we're going to start on pages 20 and 21 of Promises to Keep, all right? And 20, I'm just going to read through quickly because, honestly, the real focus today is page 21. And then I'm going to give you a short reading of rules for the bus boycott or post-bus boycott made by Martin Luther King. And I want you to compare and contrast that with Jackie Robinson's experience, which you'll hear about shortly. All right, so page 20, we're just continuing. Remember now, yesterday we see that he had met his wife, all right, so Sharon's mother, all right, and now we're just kind of picking up where we left off from there. So in spite of the inequalities in the armed forces, black soldiers served their country. In preparation for World War II, the U.S. government formed a training school for black pilots. The school was located at Tuskegee Institute in Alabama. The Tuskegee Airmen were the first African Americans to qualify as military pilots in any branch of the armed forces. By the end of World War II, almost 1,000 had won their wings at Tuskegee Army Airfield. All right, and these are the guys that I had told you about a couple lessons ago. They're a very honored group of veterans in our country. And realistically, there's still a few of them left. All right, they're very old now. But you'll see them anytime we have like a 4th of July ceremony, things like that. Usually there's at least one Tuskegee Airman on there because they're that honored. They're that important of a group. Dad was in the Army for 3 years, from 1942 to 1945. Mom stayed at UCLA to get her degree. My parents were separated except for the times Dad came home on leave. My father wrote to Mom several times a week and sent a box of chocolates on Fridays. The separation was hard on both of them, but Mom believes that it helped prepare them for their life together. Dad was stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas, and Fort Hood, Texas. Because of an old football injury, he wasn't sent overseas. Instead, he was assigned to the cavalry, where with the help of fellow soldier and boxing champion Joe Louis, he went to officers' training school and graduated as a 2nd lieutenant. So you can see here, it's Jackie in his uniform. All right. And down here, all right, we have some of those Tuskegee Airmen, okay? All right, so now 21. This is the page I want you guys to focus on, to the point where it's worth reading twice. Neither Dad's rank of 2nd lieutenant nor his college athletic celebrity protected him against the humiliation of serving in a segregated army in the Deep South. Dad served as a morale officer, yet could do nothing about the fact that the baseball team was segregated, whereas the football team was not. One way he protested this injustice was by refusing to play any sport for the Army. Toward the end of his stint in the armed forces, my father faced Jim Crow head-on. During a bus ride from the Army base into town, the bus driver ordered my father into the back of the bus, a section for black people only. Dad ignored the command. He knew his rights as a soldier. An argument followed, and Dad was arrested. Later, he had to defend himself in military court. The charges were dismissed. On November 28, 1944, Dad had honorably discharged from the Army. A year later, America and her allies declared victory over Hitler. With the war over, attention turned to peace at home. All right, so you've got a similar situation to what we read with that quote with Rosa Parks, where Jackie Robinson feels he has a right, as he should, to sit anywhere he wants to on the bus, right? And not only that, he's a little bit more than your regular citizen, right? Not only is he a soldier, he's a 2nd lieutenant, all right? So he went to officer training school. So he's an officer in the Army. He's not just your regular entry-level guy. He's an officer. So he's kind of got a bigger rank. And despite that, the bus driver is still like back of the bus, because it doesn't matter what your rank is. At the end of the day, it's the color of your skin. And this is exactly the kind of thing that Jackie is fighting against, all right? And you're going to see he didn't even play sports. I mean, this guy is the best athlete I can think of, right? I mean, he played anything he played, he was good at. So instead, he just says, you know what, I'm not going to play. His quiet protest, his boycott, all right, is by not participating in the Army sports, okay? And I'm sure they would have loved to have had him playing, all right? But if they're not going to desegregate and allow anybody to play on the baseball team, he didn't want to be a part of it, all right? And similar to this bus, that's his way of speaking up. He didn't move. He gets arrested, has to go to court, and then he gets acquitted, all right? He gets the charges are dropped, all right? So that's just his experience, all right? And that's on one side of the Venn diagram I'm going to ask you to complete. It's going to be one side is Jackie's experience, focusing on page 21, and the other is going to be on Rosa Parks and the Montgomery bus riot experience, okay? And that's based on the reading that I'll attach to the email, all right? And so from there, that's just going to give you, after the Montgomery bus boycott, okay? So basically what happened is the Supreme Court said, you know what, you're right. You have every right to sit anywhere you want to on a bus, all right? So this is after the boycott, after people said, we're not going on the buses, and the city finds out, hey, you know, we need the money, all right? And the Supreme Court says, legally, you have to let these people sit wherever they want. They're paying customers. So it's a list of rules or suggestions for African-American people that are now back on the buses of how to behave themselves, all right? And it's an idea, think of it like, it's not the best example, guys, but like being a good sportsman. You ever hear that expression? So it's like if you win, you don't go like, ah, ha, 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 you lost, you know, blah, 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 and rub people's face in it. Instead, you're like, good game, you know, you really challenged me, thank you. You know, you're being the bigger person, all right? So even though you won, you're being a bigger person by being humble, by being kind to people. You know, you don't want to be just as bad as the people that were bad to you, because then it solves nothing. All right, so I would like you guys to fill out the graphic organizer. All right, you've done a few of these now. It's a Venn diagram, so you've done this already. One side's Jackie Robinson, the other side is the Montgomery bus boycott, and in the center is what they have in common. And there's a lot of similarities, okay? And we'll talk about that at Zoom tonight. I am attempting to post a writing, just a quick little video to go over the rubric with you guys in detail, because that's really the only other piece I think you need to do in the editing. And then you're done, all right? If I can't get that video up on YouTube because I was having some issues this morning, I will email it, all right? But really, it's just walking through the rubric, aim for the 3s. That's like the furthest left column, all right? And I was saying that I would like you guys to have your second draft done and edited by Monday, all right? So we can go over it Monday, and then that's it. You're done for my part, unless we decide to do the flip book, which I doubt, but we'll talk about that, all right, next week on Monday. So I'll see you guys at 4:30, all right? And if you have any questions in the meantime, just shoot me an email.